All right, good.
Uh,
Let's do a quick recap on the weekend. Mark flew up to Boston. Was that your first trip to Boston?
I haven't been to Boston in a few years. I used to go there quite often when I used to roll along with Cybation. I used to go up there and visit my store accounts and stuff. And I haven't been there in a while. Haven't had a reason to go, but it was good to go back. I love it. I love that city.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was good to have you. And we went to ANC. You got to meet my boy Peter Morel at the Cardillo showroom there, and you got yourself a belt.
Yeah,
How
that was a
nice is
sweet
that?
belt. I've been wearing that thing, man. It looks nice. It feels nice. It's a good belt, man. That was an unexpected surprise. Usually, when someone buys stuff from you, you have to buy them gifts. But it was really cool going in there and getting a belt. That was unexpected and very much appreciated.
Yeah, that's the thing with ANC. You never go there and leave without a gift. That Peter's unbelievable like that. You buy two or three things and he'll give you two or three things, whether it's a
Such a good
shirt,
dude.
belt, or whatever. That's why he's so successful over there.
Well, I mean, they're look at how big their store is, and they're actually one of the biggest retailers. Just period, just in volume moved per any store in that area. So that just goes to show you it's not always the size. He stocks it deep. He has the shelves well stocked. A lot of these guys, they buy these big spaces, and you don't need it. What you need is a good supply. You need you need a good presence. You need to stock it full and treat your customers with respect, and they do a great job.
Yeah, yeah. So since we're on the subject of your company, and I want to start with questions of how it all started. A lot of people don't know a lot about you. What they know is your YouTube, your online persona, and Nate and I got to really get to know you this weekend. And there's a whole lot more to you than this boom guy on YouTube, you know. I want to share with the people who you are, where you started, where you grew up, how you grew up, and what got you to be such a tenacious businessman and person in general.
I think my story is a little bit different than a lot of people who end up owning companies. Although I have found that a lot of CEOs, I think most of them are self-made. A lot of millionaires in this country are self-made. And I think it comes from work ethic and kind of dealing with adversity at a young age. Now, my mom is a drug addict, and my dad, he had a he was type 2 diabetic. So he always had health problems. He actually passed away when I was in my early 20s. So my dad was always going through health problems. My mom was always in and out of rehab, mental institutions, and she was also a combat veteran in the Israeli Defense Force. So she had a bit of that PTSD action going on, along with the drug abuse. So I had to see a lot of things that children shouldn't see. Um, and through that, I was able to kind of develop this attitude where you can either fail or you can fight. And I didn't want to end up like my parents. So my mom's a drug addict, so I never touched recreational drugs. My father had diabetes, so I always took care of myself. My brother, incidentally, same way. My brother's a natural professional bodybuilder. He's also very successful in his own right. So my brother and I both went the exact opposite. And in high school, I was a baseball player, but I switched to football because I wasn't good enough at baseball. And I needed a way to get into college. I needed a way to get out of the situation I was in. I grew up I went to a nice high school, but the streets that I ended up like roaming, so to speak, weren't exactly the best areas. Inner city type stuff in Los Angeles. Did a lot of questionable decisions at that age. And my only way out was to get into college. I wasn't good enough at school to get any kind of academic scholarship. So that's when I immersed myself in football. And football showed me the weight room. And that's when I fell in love with bodybuilding, with building muscle, with the whole pursuit of that and the whole goal setting. And I ended up being pretty good at football, and it got me into college. I hurt my knee, never really did anything with it. But that got me where I was able to take that and take the fact that I had to work my way through school as anywhere from a trainer to a training coordinator at Bally Total Fitness. I ended up managing a few gyms, to a shoe salesman at Big Five Sporting Goods, to working at a feed and pet store, working 40 to 60 hours a week while taking 20 units in college. And multiple times, twice, I went to the emergency room with exhaustion. And so from there, I actually got a job offer at Weeder Publications. Muscle and Fitness Herders Flex in ad sales. And I got that job. I told you this story. I had no idea why they hired me. Laya Clark at the time was my boss. And I was literally 19 years old, just literally finished college. I finished college a little bit early. And I went up against people with master's degrees, this, that, and I got the job. And from there, I was able to develop a territory from $30,000 into $3 million, then develop that into $30 million. And then American Media bought Weeder. And I was able to take on a corporate role within American Media, all by the age of 23 years old. And so there wasn't social media. You know, a lot of people are like, hey man, you made millions, but dude, I haven't made shit on social media. I made most of my money up until probably 2 years ago. Well, obviously I sold Civation, that's later on, but I made most of my money just hustling, just being on the back end. I didn't want to do this at all. I had no aspirations of being the public guy. And I left Weeder Publications to found InStone with Sylvester Stallone. I was fired after about 4 months. I'm not very politically correct with investment groups. I didn't fit in there.
That whole InStone shut down pretty quick, right?
Yeah, we launched very well at the Arnold. And what you saw at the Arnold was mostly my work. I'm going to take full credit for it. And there were a couple, ass clowns above me who took a lot of credit for it. They hired this ad agency, Gray Global, who was just a complete sack of shit. And they fired me because I told the truth. They did this. Their whole thing is the investment group. This is a multi-billion dollar called Gore's Technology. You can look them up. And they lived in Sly's neighborhood. And so for them, $10 million is like you and I buying a Big Mac, And these motherfuckers, they wanted this $1 million PO for GNC. So this guy, you probably heard his name is Vince Andrich, goes and procures the $1 million PO. And I'm like, guys, this is a horrible mistake. Like, this brand is not ready for that. We need to grow. Well, we need to see the PO. And I'm like, it's going to fail. And they didn't like the fact that I was truthful and honest. And I was right. But that's my problem, is that I'll say things in a corporate setting that are, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but they're usually right. But they're the truth. But everybody's busy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's why I like surrounding people who tell me I suck. Like every one of my employees had told me how stupid I am at least twice, and that's what you need. You need people who are willing to stand up, who are willing to, advocate for their position. But of course, those people, they have such small penises and such big egos that they can't take a loudmouth 23-year-old telling them how to run their business. What do you know? You're 23 years old. I'm like, well, I know this is wrong, and history was right, and I was right. So after I got fired from that, I started Civation, and you might know a product called Civation Extend. That was our product. We launched it in 2011, 2006, and sold the company in 2011. And since then, it's been bought by Cellucor/Nutrabolt. And from there, I had a non-compete, so I started a house brand known as MTS Nutrition with my friend who owns TigerFitness.com. In 2018, we launched the Outright Bar in October of 2018. And we have a lot of other projects, a lot of other brands, but those are the main things. So I've been in this business since 1999 is when I started at Weeder Publications. I was working at Bally Total Fitness and the fitness community in 1997. So I've been doing this for a long time. So I'm not like some guy who just went on YouTube, did a video that went viral. I've been grinding it out. It's not as a bodybuilder. I'm a pretty lackluster bodybuilder in the grand scheme of bodybuilding. You put me next to Jose or next to Brandon or Phil or any of these other guys, So I didn't make money with my physique. My physique just happens to be a hobby of mine. I really like lifting weights and I like being in shape, but that's not how I made it. So I'm not your typical guy who gets into bodybuilding and then starts a supplement brand. I'm actually a guy who got into business, ended up spinning that business off into the nutrition industry because it's my passion. And then, of course, rolling into kind of being a guy who poses a little bit. That's it.
So listen, do you remember back in 2005, the 2005 Arnold? I was one of the InStone athletes. I worked the booth.
That was after I was fired.
Oh, really?
I was 2004 is when we launched it. So the first Arnold, I was there. And we had this, I just remember this kid, TJ, he was this pretty boy. And all I remember is he showed up late every day and I ended up telling him the last day just to stay at his hotel. TJ, I forgot his name, but yeah, that was the year after I was there. So I had no idea. So you were Vince probably brought you on there.
Yeah. We brought on me and Derek Farnsworth, and then Stan McQuay. And who was the TJ guy? Was it TJ Holben? Was he?
That could have been it. He was really pretty. Like, the guy was so pretty. I wanted to have sex with him.
Yeah. He was like a muscle mania bodybuilder, I think.
Yeah, he looked phenomenal. I mean, he was a pretty. He like had no work ethic, and he just showed up late. And I'm like, bro, we can't be doing this. And I'm like, just don't bother. And we worked without him because he wasn't really doing much. But we did it. It was a great launch. It was a great time. But it didn't last very long. But it's honestly the coolest thing on my resume to this day.
Yeah, it was amazing that it had so much backing, yet failed so quickly.
Well, it's the lack of leadership. John Arnold was the CEO, and the guy's a complete idiot. Vince Andrich is a career do-nothinger. And, he's been a lot of places. He always gets hired. But, I mean, he's just, that's just what, again, like, that's not an insult. Yeah, it is an insult. But, it was lack of leadership. And they weren't willing. When you're running a company, you have investors like that. You got to be willing to push back and say, this is not possible, because they want their money back ASAP. And they were spending money like it was nothing. Like, they were lavish parties at the W Hotel, wasting money on stupid things. Just like, dude, we're a supplement company. We can't be spending like we're selling like Versace. Like, they thought, they just came in and they were just printing money. And I'm like, they're not going to keep giving us more money. They're going to want some shit back. And it was just, no one will listen to me, man. No one will listen. Like, I'm like, I know what I'm talking about for saving money. I'm Jewish. You guys need to listen.
Their signature product was pudding.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah. Pudding, and then the meal replacements. I used to buy both of those when they came out.
Yeah. So there was Intake Go, which was the pudding. And Forza T was the test booster. What was was it Inferno? It was something, Inferno or something. Lean Fire. Lean Fire was the fat burner. And funny story is the pudding they actually got sued for because they violated a non-disclosure agreement when they came out with it. This guy came, last name was Birchner. I forgot his first name, but he came in, Ted Birchner, and he came in and he presented this idea. We all signed NDAs, and then they went off and they reverse engineered. I'm like, guys, we're going to get sued. And they got sued. So again, couldn't happen to better people, but it was quite an experience. It was really cool though, because my wife and I, we're like, I still have the picture. Like, when we went there, like, we went to these cool parties, like with really rich people, and Sly's there, and you're around these like gurus, these titans, and you're eating food you can't pronounce. And for us, I'm a 24-year-old. I have that blue collar work ethic. I never grew up around that. I'm from Inglewood, California. I don't know what's going on. I've never been a part of that. And I'm like, well, this is it's kind of awesome. So it was probably the coolest 4 months of my young life at that point. Like, I'm literally going to dinner with Sly. Like, I'm hanging out with the guy who inspired me to train hard. And he's an okay guy. He's Hollywood. He's a little bit of a pretentious douche, but overall, it was a phenomenal experience.
Yeah. That's awesome. Go ahead, Nate.
So I want to ask you, go back to the Bally days, because obviously we have that in common.
Yeah.
I worked for Bally Total Fitness, 3 years as a trainer, 2 years as a fitness manager. They offered me to be a regional manager of the Midwest, kind of Minnesota area, and I turned it down and then went on to something else. But so the three of us here do online coaching, right? And so we're in the era now of online coaching, and you can't go on Instagram without there being like an online coach, right? Who's going to teach you how to make six figures in 2 months. And the whole pitch of that is, why would you waste your time setting foot in a gym, training people, when you can sit at home in your underwear and coach people online, right? Mm-hmm. And all of us here have done both. But I want you to talk about, because I know my start at Bally's, those first couple of years, I got my ass handed to me. I was in there all day making no money. Guys that were terrible trainers, but were like the smooth talker, bartender guys who were crushing it.
Yeah.
Here I am, the introverted person, music nerd right out of music school. and I couldn't approach anybody. I didn't know how to sell. All these things my NASM certification didn't teach me. But once I figured it out, those years at Bally's training were so valuable to me in life skills, in sales, in people skills, in prospecting, in client retention, in combining fitness and business, which I've done my whole life. So can you talk about, now we're in this era where everybody wants to get a cert and be an online coach and never set foot in a gym, of what you took from those early years at Bally's?
Man, you ever see that movie Boiler Room?
Yeah.
Bally was the boiler room of fitness, man. The salespeople there were some of the most relentless fucking sharks I've ever been in with my life. These guys are insane. They were good. They had quotas. They crushed them. They got paid. Training was the same way. I always tell people this, like even online coaching, even let's take Bally to the side, then I'll get to the Bally mindset. But if you look at online coaching, the online coaches who get paid a lot, they're normally not even certified. They normally have no background. Like I can point to all my Exos and this and that. If you can't market yourself, if you can't get out there and have a compelling message to get someone to get off their ass and hire you, you're not going to get hired. You can be the best trainer in the world, but number one thing for training, people are like, what should be the number one thing I should learn as a trainer? I'm like, how to sell. Because it's great to know how to train people, but you're not going to pay your bills by being a great trainer. You can pay your bills by being a great trainer and a great salesman, but the one in tandem, you can be a bad trainer and make a lot of money. You can be a good trainer and make a lot of money. Okay, the bottom line is I think everybody's goal should be to be a good trainer and make a lot of money. You're not going to make a lot of money unless you can sell. Even look in this industry, Jose, look at these coaches, like these gurus. Are they doing anything that different, from each other? There might be some, little bit of differences. But if you look at the main bread and butter, I've talked to so many people who have been prepped by this guy. I'm not going to name names of that guy. And a lot of their approaches are very similar. It's, let's say, who brings, Hani got the jackpot by getting Phil. Phil's a genetic freak. What did Chad Nichols say? He's like, if you can't bring Ronnie in, like the main thing with Ronnie is he's going to come and shit. You have to try to mess him up because he was so good. The guy would eat 12 pounds of chicken with barbecue sauce on it every meal and get in shape. Like not even a little bit of barbecue sauce, like the whole bottle. Like I don't even think he counted one macro, just a freak. As for Bally, it showed me that as good of a trainer as I think I was, and I was pretty good. I was young. I had very little experience, but I still beat people who might've been better trainers because I was good at selling and I was good at telling a story, but the guys who really crushed it had their way. There's this dude in the Studio City location, I believe. His name was Masa. He was this old Asian dude, and he would crush it because he knew his market. He could sell himself. He had a couple good before and after stories. And that's what it told me. A good trainer needs to be able to tell a story and needs to be able to sell hopes and dreams. And if you can deliver on that, then you get the main goal, which is long-term customer retention. Because as a trainer, it's hard to find new clients. But you get someone who signs up for you year after year after year after year, and it becomes a part of their monthly allocation of funds. That's how you can ensure yourself a steady income to pay your salary.
Yep. No, exactly. That was my first lesson too. When I started and couldn't sell, and it crushed my hopes and dreams of wanting to do this because I'm failing at this, right? My heart is in the right place. I have the knowledge. I am failing. And I was watching guys, literally just the dudes at the club that are really good at picking up chicks, that can go out 3-4 nights a week and pick up any chick they want, crush it just all day long, and just blowing off clients, like terrible trainers, bad people, making 10 times more money than me. And so that kind of became my life lesson of I need to find my way to do what they're doing ethically, still being me, everything that you mentioned. So that's when we were talking this week and when we had that in common, I found that interesting because for me, that was the catalyst that gave me my foundation of understanding business in general, of I have a product to sell. Who's my customer? How am I going to get the product in front of them? How am I going to ask for the sale? All of those things are transferable to really any industry, when you break it down. And a lot of my group that I started when I came into Bally's were about 30 trainers. And I was 22 right out of school. Yeah. And most of those people probably 90% of those trainers are not working in the field anymore.
Mhm.
Completely got out, but they're doing like medical device sales, pharmaceutical sales, right? Things where they can make really good money and provide for a family and have health insurance and all the things that a trainer job doesn't usually have. But all of those skills for their current career were learned at Bally's and having to hustle and sell memberships or sell training.
I think the take home is sales is life. You have to, if you have good sales skills, you will always have a job. You will always have an income. Sales is transferable to any industry. You find out your product attributes and you know your competition, but you don't focus on them. And then you focus on honing in on how to close. And the best way to learn how to close is to try. You might try this approach and it might not work. And it might work for some and not the other. I'm not slick enough to do it. I'm more of a, okay, here's everything in front of you. You make a compelling argument like a good attorney, and hopefully they side with your case. So think of it as sales is basically practicing law without a degree. You have to convince that person, AKA the jury or the judge, that your product or service is either worth buying or not worth buying, AKA guilty or not guilty. So sales skills are fundamental. And that's not something they teach in college. That's something you have to learn. And that's something that, I have my children sit in on sales calls, and I'll have them go into stores with me when I'm interacting with customers. But I think the main thing people overlook is, how to interact with people and how to have those interpersonal skills. And I think that's the problem with this new generation is with this Twitter world where you don't even have to, dude, where did we learn how to sell? By trying to get chicks. Dude, like game. When I was a kid, we used to practice game. When I was like 15 years old, we used to practice. Like I stand in my mirror and like throw out fucking spit lines, spit game. And then we'd go and we'd try it on ugly chicks. So that way, if we fail, it doesn't matter. If we succeed, we just walk away. That way you're practiced. So you could go and you could try it on the hot chick and hopefully it works. And we used to have and there's different kinds of game. Like you've probably had that friend, sorry about that. You probably had that friend who, just had mad game, was smooth, could say things that would get you slapped. Yet my approach was always, okay, I'm a funny guy. I'm very extroverted. So I'm going to tell some jokes. So you got to find what your niche is, how your approach is. But I think at the end of the day, treat everybody correct. Like I've gone in over 150 vitamin shops during a pandemic to say what's up to the managers, to talk to them. I see everybody from a 19-year-old kid, a male who trains, who knows me online, to in Boston, the women were, 40, 50 years old and more interested in selling ginkgo biloba, but the thing is, how can you relate to them? How can you adapt to your customer? And sales, again, the one thing I tell everybody to do, no matter what field you're in, oh, well, I'm not in sales. What do you do? Well, I'm a researcher. Okay. Have you ever tried to get a grant? You got to write it up. You have to sell it. You have to present it. So every industry is very heavily focused on sales.
Quickly sell me your bar, because I've tried to explain it to people. All I can say is it's delicious. But you explained something to me about the ingredients and your daughter. She's a soccer player, and you wanted to make sure she had something that she could have. So quickly explain that to me, because I have no idea.
The story of the Outright Bar, if we have a little bit of time, is that we were at a soccer tournament. It was the Midwest Cup in Illinois. My daughter was 10. She was playing center mid. For those of you who don't know soccer, center midfield is the middle of the field. You have to run back. You have to run up. You support. You control the middle of the field. She'd run between 6 and 7 miles a game, and she's playing the whole game. And there's 3 games in that day. Between games, we had the choice of a Cliff Bar or a Z Bar as the bars, which are just carbs. That's it. They're basically brown rice syrup, which is sugar. And so it's like, all right, she's going to crash the end of the game, and she always does. You can't give them like churros and funnel cakes or whatever the hell else they have at these tournaments, or hot dogs and pretzels and nachos. And I don't have time to go out and get a sandwich. So I'm like, what if I created a bar that my kids could eat between games, and even just cooked it at home in my oven? And then I'm like, well, I also have an issue. I used to love the One and the Quest bars. I love those guys. Like, they are pioneers in this industry. But there's 12 to 15 grams of fiber because you have to bind the bar together. So I can't eat it. I have irritable bowel syndrome. Can you imagine eating one of those pre-workout? You have all that fiber, and it's a gut bomb. It really is. It soaks up water. It makes you bloated. All right. So I'm like, I want to create a bar that's based around whole food. I want monounsaturated healthy fats. I want to base it on some kind of a nut butter. Also want to have superfood. I need a superfood that could bind the bar together. That's what we came up with honey. Okay. I might want to add some oats in some of the varieties because oats have their great benefits. And then I want the best quality protein. I want to throw some whey protein isolate in there. And I want to make it taste like something my kids will eat and crave. And the number one thing is we need this to taste amazing. We need to hit those ingredient parameters. And we were able to do it with the Outright Bar. The Outright Bar is whole food based, high quality protein based on the superfood honey, also whey protein isolate. Now, honey isn't like throwing sugar just from a can. Honey is a natural form of sugar based on fructose, which is slow digesting. So if you were to eat an Outright Bar pre-workout or during the day, your blood sugar is not going to do this. Your blood sugar is going to be nice and controlled because honey is, in most cases, a diabetic-friendly carb. So this bar took me 3 years to create, and finally in July of 2018, we were able to launch it. And since then, it's become the #1 bar in the industry and the #1 selling bar at the Vitamin Shop.
There it is. That's exactly what I couldn't do.
We need to record that because I don't think I could say that twice. That was, I think, the best I've ever done.
That was perfect. We'll get a snippet for you and send it to you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a dream because I've never done functional foods. I flavor powders and pills, and I don't flavor pills, but I'm a powder and pill guy. You know, I've been in the hardcore market with the whey proteins and the pre-workouts and the, you know, obviously with Extend, we created the intra workout category, which is now a $100+ million category. So I have created a category before, but to actually pioneer and create a category like this outside the industry is very small. We were talking about this. The industry is not very big, but with bars, dude, like we're going to be in we're in HEB, we're in Ingles, we're in Hy-Vee, we're in all these grocery stores. We'll be in Target next year. It's just insane what's gone on. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, anyone would like that bar. It doesn't taste like a protein bar or a healthy bar. It tastes delicious, like a candy bar.
When's the last time you've seen a kid go, Daddy, can I have a Quest bar? As an adult who's health conscious, I love the Quest bar, but I have kids like on my kids' soccer teams. Like my son eats 4 to 5 Outright bars a day. That's almost his entire food intake. Like Preston, he's 7. So if you can have a bar that kids crave, imagine what'll happen to adults. You know, and you'll see you have different varieties. We have a vegan variety, an almond butter, a peanut butter, a nut-free sunflower seed butter. We have a keto version coming out in December. We have a cashew butter. So we've made it where if anybody, and we have had knockoffs and they do a really crappy job and they're a bunch of Me Too, no talent ass clowns. But, you know, at the end of the day, they can't catch us because as hard as they're working to copycat us, you're not going to make a better tasting bar. I guarantee you that. And you're not gonna do it with the variety and the ingenuity that we're gonna do. So I encourage people to try and knock us off. It just makes me feel special.
Yeah, motivates you too.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Keep nipping at my heels, guys. I'll just keep running faster.
Yeah.
So, Mark, can we talk about your previous competition history? You know, I didn't know a lot about your bodybuilding past. I mainly knew of this year as you were talking about your year-long prep to do the Masters USAs, of the phases leading up to it. You were talking about the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I'll say for people that haven't seen you, we'll say train in person, like in a tank top and a pump, you were way bigger and way better shape than I think even comes across like in your YouTube.
My cameraman sucks. He's terrible. Yeah.
No, both Jose and I were really, really impressed. Just your chest thickness, your back thickness. I mean, you're a serious caliber bodybuilder. And you know, to be taken seriously, a guy that can absolutely jump into one of these national shows and do very well. So can you talk about your past of competing? I know you did natural bodybuilding, how that started, and then obviously you had a hiatus for a period of time, but talk about that and why you got out of it.
I competed naturally, but I never competed in a natural organization. I started taking HRT in 2017. No, 2007. I was 27. Sorry, got the years confused. So, but I never competed naturally. I always wanted to, I looked at natural bodybuilding. I don't mean this as an offense to any natural bodybuilders. I looked at it as arena football. You know, like I want to play in the NFL and I don't care if I'm undersized. I want to go up. So I compete as a lightweight and middleweight. I ended up doing really well. I won a couple shows, the Heart of Texas, Gold's Classic, the Max Muscle in Virginia when it used to be a big, very, I don't know what it is now, but that show was competitive. I had like 3 guys in my class when I won it who placed top 5 at nationals the last like 2 years. It was a crazy competitive show. It was one of those shows. Have you ever been in one of these shows? And I don't know, this is a question for both of you, but when you walk backstage and I see myself as a sack of shit. Like I have horrible self-esteem. Like when I see, I'm proud of who I am, but like, I don't see myself like these. I walked backstage and I saw these guys and I'm like, I called my wife and I'm like, I'm not winning today. And I ended up winning, but these guys looked to me, they looked so good. Have you ever had that happen?
Oh yeah. When I was first competing at the national level and doing well, I would do the same thing. I would text my buddy Matt and I'm like, you got to see this guy. He was in front of me weighing in. His calves were huge. And I ended up winning and he placed like 9th. But the guys I was worried about, you know, it plays head games with you. Yeah. You see people and they look crazy to you. And you have no idea what you look like. You know?
Yeah, it would always brain fuck me. And I got better at it later on. Just not looking at just not even paying attention. But yeah, I mean, I won a few shows and then I was getting ready I was going to do nationals in 2013. And I was doing a warm-up show and it happened to be a pro qualifier for NABA. And at that time, Lee Priest was in NABA and there was some really good talent. I thought they were making a move to be a perennial number 2. And I didn't intend on winning the show. And because I was peaked, but I wasn't what I was going to be for nationals, you know? And I ended up winning. And then I'm like, okay, I'm still gonna do nationals. Then I found out you have to forfeit your pro card before you can compete in NPC show. And I'm like, I've only had it like a month, right? Like, let me have a year of enjoying this. And then I didn't compete till for another couple of years. And I placed second in a NABA pro show. And then I took a lot of time off because, you know, personal stuff, businesses were growing. Marriage had issues that I had to fix. And I think we've all been there. Anybody who's been married or in a long-term relationship realizes that if you have an issue, competing is not going to make it better. At best, it'll make it neutral, but it's definitely not going to improve it. So I took some time off and, you know, I really had every intention of doing Masters USA this year. But I noticed my like attitude got a little off. And I don't know what that was related to, but at that point I'm like, all right, let's step back. And what's really, really cool is that I've made progress after I'm actually more on track than I was when I was thinking of competing. I think when I have that in my mind that I'm competing, that it screws me up. And the cortisol or just the worrying or whatever, it actually throws me off my game. So I think I look better now than I did. I think I look more on pace now than I did when I was actually on pace. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Jose,
I mean, you saw it. Yeah.
Jose, can you talk about, you know, you've obviously, you've been competing a long time. You've had a lot of friends and I know you've coached a lot of people that have been in a similar position to Marc, where someone like me would look at him and be like, holy shit, this guy's shredded. He's right on track, man. He's going to kill it. Yeah. And meanwhile, he's a head case and he drops out of the show. I know you've had a lot of guys, you've showed me pics where you're like, oh my God, this guy's going to do some damage in this show, pro or national level. And they drop out 2-3 weeks before. So I think it's important to talk about, not only because Marc, you know, just went through it, but there's probably a lot of people going through this. And so from my perspective, it seems to be kind of like what Marc was saying of you're so deep into it that you need to step back. And I know when Marc and I talked, you know, Marc commented during dinner on Saturday that I was pretty normal for a guy that's 4 weeks out from a show.
You're amazingly normal for a guy who looks that fucking good. Like, I hate you. Like, you shouldn't be looking, first of all, you shouldn't be looking that good. Second of all, you shouldn't be looking that good and being that happy at the same time.
So I know for me, it was, and Jose, this may be the same for you of why you worked with Aceto. It's the reason I work with you is so I can shut that part of my brain off. It's not even an option to think, am I where I should be? Should I be leaner? Should I be fuller? Should I? I've been there, and it's a horrendous place to be. It's a cyclone of all the wrong emotions, and there's no way to win. So by working with you, I just send you pics. You give me the order and I execute it. And that's all I got to do is what I need to do daily. I got to do the 2 cardio sessions today. I've got to get these carbs in. I've got to train this, done. So can you talk about, Jose, your experience of working with people like this? Because it is a very common thing of what Marc just went through.
Absolutely. What a lot of people don't know is that it is an emotional sport. It's a mental game that you have to stay mentally strong throughout. And what I've found is that people that end up really breaking down and, backing out or dropping out of the show, and they look fantastic, have some personal demons to begin with, or they have children in a family. And, this guilt starts to set in, like, I'm being so selfish, spending 3-4 hours a day on myself when my kids need me, my wife needs me, and I'm being snappy at them. And I found that quite a bit, that it's usually married people with children or multiple children. And, I understand it. You and I don't have kids. So it is a little easier for us to, shut the world out and just focus on what we got to do and get through it. It doesn't mean it's easy for us, but it's easier because we don't have, 3 or 4 or 5 mouths to feed or that are relying on us, So I understand when people go through that, because I couldn't fathom being a father of 3 and having a wife and a mortgage and businesses and, but yeah, it happens all the time. I mean, one guy in particular that was peeled, huge, round, crazy, ready to go. And he was a week out from doing Tampa. And he just said, nah, man, I can't do it. It was just too much on him. And he was so sad to let me down. And I'm like, you're not letting me down, dude. If anything, I respect your opinion. You're the one living through this, not me. There'll always be another chance if you want to do it. But, I have to respect and appreciate these people's decision. I've had multiple people drop out. Personally, I never have. I've never dropped out of a show. I never would, because once I'm 100%, unless it were a catastrophic injury or something, I'm focused and ready to go. I can't wait. I can't wait to get on stage and see that final product. But it certainly happens all the time. And it is, it's like any sport or any job, people are going to be better emotionally suited for it than others. But I think someone like Marc can definitely do whatever it is he wants to do. He's proven through business that he can do anything, and time will tell. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it happens all the time, whether it's women, men. With the men, it's a harder diet. I'm not gonna lie. A bikini girl doesn't have to have striated glutes. It doesn't have to be 3% body fat with no water in her. She just got to look hot and in good shape. It's hard for a bodybuilder to get contest ready, especially nowadays. If you don't have striated glutes and hamstrings, you're not even going to get a look. So
you're absolutely right. For me, it was I think it was just everything. I've actually right now, my daughter, if you don't know me and my kids are everything. And my firstborn is my daughter. I'm very protective of my daughter, but there was an instance where her team just won the state championship. She's a freshman. It was a huge, I can deal with work stress, nothing. I could deal with like playing with my kids, nothing. But going through that playoff process, it destroyed me. Like it was I've never been so stressed in my life. When they finally won the title, I literally went from having irritable bowel syndrome to nothing like the next day. Like it was an immediate relief. I've never been so stressed in my life. And what set me off was she was a freshman. She's not going to play the whole game. She didn't play in the district final. She didn't play enough. And she was mad. And I was mad that she wasn't happy enough after they won district. And that's when I'm like, okay, I got to step back. Now, we'll see what the future holds. I don't make any predict, but you never, the thing about me is you never really know. But I think the problem is, where you say you get into the zone and you're going to do the show. My problem is that, but I do that with 12 things at once.
Right.
And systemically, like, I'm like, okay, we're getting the outright barn target. Okay, we're going to do this initiative with the company. Okay, we got Black Friday. I got, we're launching that new brand I told you about that I can't talk about yet. It's like, there's so many things that I'm friggin' 100% on, where I think systemically my brain is like, let's keep going. But systemically I shut down and I start manifesting in different emotions and different like things that aren't me, like snapping or going off or having a temper. That's something I don't do. So, that's where, things change. Life is, it's fluid. So who knows what next week holds or the week after, and we'll see.
Yeah. My guy that backed out of the Tampa Pro, his story was almost identical to what you just explained. He also has daughters and a wife and that was it. He got a little snappy and said, that's it. I'm done. He didn't look back.
Yeah. Well, good for him, because a lot of people, I've seen a lot of relationships ruined from bodybuilding. I've seen more ruined than saved. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
It can be very therapeutic. It can also be very toxic, especially the last few weeks, when your body fat's low and your hormones are wherever they are. And, depending on what you're taking and all that, it can definitely wreak havoc on your mental and your physical state.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to bring this up is not from a, hey, why is somebody dropping out? Why are these people going all the way? Why are they dropping out? Is more of a, we probably have a lot of people that listen to this that are thinking of doing their first show. And, Jose and I have a friend who's planning on doing a show next year, who has 3 children, has a marriage he has to worry about, has a main job, has some side hustles. And so this is a guy that's like a brother to me, that I'm the guy that's like, hey, listen, yeah, you want to do the show, but here's what you need to know going into it. It's not, sometimes people have this ideal of, they see someone else compete. He might see me compete. You see other friends compete and you're like, oh, I want to do that. You go up on stage, you're just all shredded and jacked and you get that trophy. And it's like, dude, there's a whole other side of this, in terms of not only the time commitment that other things have to suffer. I'm a really even keeled guy, but I know when I hit 4 weeks out, and my girlfriend knows when I hit 4 weeks out, there's a little bit more quiet time. And by the end of the day, I might be sitting in my spot here watching YouTube videos. She knows to just kind of leave me alone. I'm in my own little place. You work things out. But someone going into their first show doesn't know about any of this. People are, you might say, yeah, you're going to suffer. It's going to be hard, but it's a different story when you're in your position. There's probably a lot of people watching, wanting to compete either for the first time or get back to it later in life. Now they have a wife and kids. It's something they did in their 20s. And this is something really important to think about, like bigger picture. Is this show that important if you could be sacrificing relationships with your children, with your wife? So that's why I wanted to bring this up, is not in a, why do people drop out, but in a more of a, hey, this is real world. This is some really hard shit, especially have the amount of responsibilities like you have, which more responsibilities than I have, which makes a prep even harder. It's something somebody should think about going into this. And if they're going to do it, have these conversations with their loved ones ahead of time, knowing there's going to be sacrifices from everybody for a period of time so the person can do this show. And then, man, I've seen other bodybuilders talk about, for 3 months, I'm going to be an asshole, but I'll spend the other 9 months making it up to you, because it's the best I can do, in this situation. So,
well, I mean, look at Brandy. She sends Brandon's ass to the fucking Middle East. I mean, she doesn't even send him to like a different state. She's like, bro, go in the desert. So, I mean, there's, and he has 4 kids, and I think that's for him to focus too. kids don't like, you can have that relationship with your wife where you're like, okay, for 3 months, but kids don't give a fuck. Like they want your attention. You have to be supportive. You have to be at their games. You know, I don't get to sleep in. There's a soccer game one of them is going to have an 8 a.m. game every weekend. So we don't have that like downtime. And then at night you're helping with homework. You're doing this, trying to get them to bed. You're getting them this, that, the other. You're going to practice here and there. Like there's only so much time in the day. So there's just kids just add a unique variable that I think, and I'm not saying that it makes, you know, plenty of people have hard lives without kids. I'm not downplaying single life, but kids, you know, you have their parasites, man. They need stuff from you. Like they're not really doing much for you. You're just doing for them. And, you know, so it's a definite unique variable. So I'd encourage anybody who's going to compete to really explore what it's worth. Cause you know, you, me and Jose, we can make an argument that it will benefit our career in some way. We can make that argument, but most people aren't going to ever make a single penny directly or indirectly from getting on stage in tights.
It's true. Even most pros.
Yeah. People think pros are getting paid so well. And it's like, it's not like it was. Like back in the day, you get a pro card because they only gave out like 1 or 2 a year. And I don't know if you remember that final with, you had Coleman, Cormier, Flex, Mendenhall. Was it Mendenhall? You had these phenomenal like guys but only one of them got a pro card, right? Now they give away pro cards like Tic Tacs, man. They're just like, hey, here's a pro. I see people with the FBB Pro after their name that don't even look like they lift now, you know. But enough about physique competitors. You know, it's one of those things where it doesn't have the clout it does. So people are like, I'm going to be a pro bodybuilder. Cool. What are you going to do for your full-time job? Because that's not a job, bro. That's a hobby. You're not going to get paid. Most pro bodybuilders are begging for supplement-only sponsorships at the end of the day. And that's the harsh reality, is that there's no money in just having a pro card. The pros who do well are able to monetize it. They're able to move on. If you look at the guys who are really successful on social media, they're not even competing. They just look pretty and they post inspirational stuff. So maybe if you're looking for a career in it, just realize, put it for what it is. It's a very hard hobby. You know, it's a very difficult, time-consuming, life-consuming hobby for most. And very few of you will get to Jose's level or even mine or Nate's level. It's very, I would say all three of us have above average genetics. Look at Nate's muscle bellies. That's not normal. And 99% of people out there aren't there. And how many years of training and years of dieting? Nobody's got that kind of time commitment. So to think you're even going to get to Nate's level or my level, let alone your level, and somehow then become a multimillionaire from posing, good luck.
There's very few. There's Jay.
That's it.
That are at that crazy level.
Yeah.
You know, even like Labrada and Gaspari, they did it with business, with the supplement company. Mm-hmm. It wasn't from their, you know, their bodybuilding. You know, Jay was the first one to make real money through bodybuilding.
Yeah, Jay was he was just smarter than he invested in real estate. He had his side hustles. Jay's always thinking for what the next step is. And a lot of guys are so focused on the competing, they don't look outside the box. So that's when I even talk to these pros, I'm like, I try to give them some perspective. All right, okay, so you got that cool sponsorship contract. Great. What happens when you lose? Like you need to have a fallout because you're not going to make that Mr. Olympia winner bonus or that Arnold most muscular bonus. So you have to plan for a rainy day. You have to put away money. When you make that prize money, don't go put 24-inch rims on your Toyota Corolla. Maybe you should put it into some kind of wise investment.
Yeah. Hey, so can you talk about your other projects yet? Are you comfortable talking with that? Or not the supplement one, but the one out in California?
The Iron Addicts Gym?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are not doing a big grand opening, but we might be open for business soon because we're able to stay under the capacity limits and, you know, we're going to be there. We can't do huge events, but Iron Addicts Gym is a gym that I own alongside Mike Rashid, Sean Torbody, and CT Fletcher. And you guys know CT Fletcher. He's iconic. Probably like I told you guys, and I'm not lying, like he's the nicest guy you will ever meet in your life. And now that we've come together, CT built kind of the what the CT built the gym. It's CT's gym. It's CT's likeness. We're just putting some makeup on it, man. We got some new turf down. We got a good membership system. We're gonna have key card access. We're gonna have the beautiful turf with his image. We got some new equipment in. So basically, Iron Addicts, if you've ever been to an event there before the LA Fit Expo, it has this atmosphere, this aura around it that just makes you excited. And that's something that we have. We have the first location, obviously, in Orange County. We have a location that is in Vegas. There is an Iron Addicts. We're not 100% linked up yet. We're going to get our model down. And then what we want to do is we're going to franchise this thing. And you're going to see Iron Addicts everywhere, from California to Tennessee, maybe Ohio. And, we're really looking into, long-term making this. There's no good hardcore gym franchise anymore. Gold's Gym had their problems. They've lost a lot of franchisees. Powerhouse is pretty much not there anymore. With Iron Addicts, we're going to give you what you want. And that will be a gym that you can call home.
That's awesome. That's huge.
I'm excited. Yeah.
How soon do you think that will happen? I mean, California is kind of killing everyone right now.
I think, we're going to have people, we're going to start the memberships very exclusive. It's going to be 50 members. So a very exclusive club right now. But we're also going to have trainers who train clients, and we're going to, as the thing opens up. So we're going to open up as we're allowed to, we're allowed to have 10 people in this space now. With 50 members, there's very, very, very unlikely chance there's going to be 10 people. And if there is, we have an outdoor training section as well, which is, you can't get Corona outdoors. That's, it's complete.
Or in a car.
Or sitting down at, you can't get it sitting down at a restaurant, but you get it standing up when you go to the bathroom. That's how to put your mask on. So we're going to do it as we can. It's going to be awesome. We right now it's worth it for us because you have Mike Rashid training there, Simeon Panda, all those guys are getting their content. So the beauty of this gym, you go in at any time and see Big Rob, Simeon Panda, Mike Rashid, myself, CT, all these other guys who come in there and train. So your favorite internet celebrities are going to be at that location training. And it's going to be really awesome once we get it going. And once we figure out and we get the groundwork set, that's when we're going to start. Okay, we got the blueprint. Let's move this over to this location. Let's move this over to that location. And then we'll have you go to Iron Addicts in any city and know that you're going to get that same awesome experience. Although I don't know if we could replicate what CT built in Orange County, in Long Beach. I think we could come damn close.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
You got anything else, Nate?
So yeah, before we go, I just want to ask you about your online persona. We got to know you a lot more over this weekend, and I like you a lot more in person than maybe YouTube. Lobliner. But one of the things I want to ask you is, like, Jose and I online are very safe, let's say, right? We post bodybuilding pictures, we post whatever. You don't really rock the boat much, versus your online persona definitely does. You're like, people are very, very split. They either love you or hate you or love to hate you. And it's, we saw it firsthand. The gyms that we went to, multiple people came up to you, right? Even with a mask on, people recognized your voice, told you how much they love you. So it's very clear there's a group of people that love your content, just love the entertainment that you bring. And there's a whole lot of people that just like to shit on everything that you put out just in the comment section, the YouTube trolls. So with that being said, because Jose and I are far away from that in terms of trying to be controversial. Talk a little bit about that. Was that when you decided to, like you said, you've stayed out of the limelight all these years in business. When you decided to come into the limelight and put out content, was it intentional, or are you just sort of ramping it up to 10 because you're an extroverted person and you're like, I just have no filter, I'm going to say what I think?
Well, I mean, a lot of what you see is, it's different when you're presenting or you're making a case, is that you're going to be more hyperbolized. You're going to be out there. You're going to be speaking. You're being inflecting. So my voice can sound different than if we're sitting in a car. I'm not going to be like, hey guys, boom, like in a car. It's weird. It's creepy. My opinions are my opinions. I'll say things to gaslight, but generally speaking, there's certain things I like my country. I love freedom. I'm an independent thinker. I don't belong to a Republican or a Democrat party. I call it like it is, but I also respect everybody's right to have their opinion. I have the one thing about humans, we have empathy. We're able to empathize with other people and why they believe what they believe. And if we're not able to talk about things, we're never going to really, find an answer. And also, I've learned a lot from listening to people who make me uncomfortable. And sometimes I change my views. I give this example all the time. Like last year, I decided that I'm pro-life. I was pro-choice for 39 years of my life. I kept researching it, and I kept looking into it. And I'm like, you know what? Here's why I'm pro-life. So it took me 39 years to come to that conclusion. And I don't want to discuss. I'm just giving an example. I don't want to go over. This will take another 10 hours, right? But my point is that we need to talk about things. A lot of people discount us, like, oh, stick to fitness, stick to bodybuilding. Well, there's a lot more to me. And with that, I've created, or I've kind of not created, but I've become part of something really special where there's a lot of communities out there who like talking about this. Like, for example, my Twitter, these people, a lot of them don't even lift, but they might want to talk about other topics. So for me, fitness gets really boring. How often can you talk about bicep curls? Or can you talk about how to do a proper row? Like, there's a finite amount of material to talk about. But in the fitness community, we have perspective. For example, health, low carb diets. We were so far ahead of the curve on that. And certain things that people are afraid to talk about. But if you looked at our community, it's going that way. You look at people like Mark Bell and Jason Poston and Steve Kuklo, like they've gone completely, like they're wearing MAGA hats and they're out there, they're political. I don't get much political. I just state opinion. My Instagram stays pretty apolitical, mostly funny and maybe some tutorials and some jokes and some family stuff. But on other platforms, I will, and I've tried to separate it a little bit. But I think that it's not our duty. Like, we don't owe anybody anything. But I think that we have as much of a right as anybody to bring up topics that people might want to talk about, that maybe they disagree with us or they agree with us on, but that's what makes this so special. And that's why social media is social media. It allows you to understand and relate to and talk to people. So I think that's the beautiful thing about
it. Yeah,
that's beautiful.
That's what I was more wondering is, even our little rinky-dink channel here, we can put up a video and there's guaranteed to be some ridiculous comments, shitting on
I don't read them. I can't.
Shitting on our form when we put up a lifting video, or shitting on the guest, and you laugh about it because as Jose's always said, somebody that's in a better position than you, whether it's a better physique, further along in life, more successful, isn't going to do that, right? It's always somebody coming from a lower place, punching up, out of dealing with their own issues, right? Let me bring other people down rather than working on myself. So this stuff never gets to me, but I always wonder, someone of your level, that you're way more under fire than we ever are in our Instagram and this YouTube. Do you just tend to not look at the comments when you post something, let's say even like political stuff, right? Which you've been on during the election.
I don't look at YouTube comments. It's too toxic. Sometimes they really hurt. We actually had a hazmat called to our house. We had a bomb threat a few years ago. Hazmat came out. I wasn't home, and everybody was scared that we were going to die because it was an anthrax scare. And then the great city of Elgin ended up billing us for the hazmat to come out, even though it was in the mailbox. It was basically a threat via mail. So we've gone through our share of internet negatives. But think about the positivity of the internet, how many people you've met, the fact we're able to walk into, like, I get recognized in Petco. It's like, because of YouTube, my daughter's school, every kid on the football team knows who I am, and that's good and bad. But, at the end of the day, it's allowed us such great things. So there's always going to be negative, but there's one thing I always point to, like, I have a mirror, and I understand people always point out that my arms are too weak for my upper body. I agree. I agree. And some things you can't genetically fix, right? Like, there's certain insertions. But I've known a lot of pro bodybuilders, from Dorian to Ronnie to my good friend Brandon to Phil. None of those guys have ever made fun of my arms because they're confident in who they are and they're good and they're great. The only people who's talking shit about my arms are people who don't even want to lift, are people who have shitty arms. But I look at it for what it is. I've gotten better, but it used to hurt. Like these comments, what people say, and Mike Rashid, my partner in Ambrosia, and the Iron Addicts Gym, he's honest. Like he's done videos and he's like, dude, this shit hurts. When you say things like that, we're humans. Like we have feelings. And there are some people it won't get you. Like Brandon Curry, you can literally run his foot over with your car and he'll be like, all right, I'm gonna just get that fixed, you know? But for most of us, especially people like me, I'm extremely emotional. And it hurts. It absolutely does. But you do your best to let it bounce off of you and try to understand that the person making these comments is in a really bad spot in life for them to be negative about it.
I actually read a meme today and it said, hurt people hurt people.
Yes. Couldn't be more true. It's very true. I mean, you just have to realize that this person is in a really horrible spot in life. When's the last time you went on someone's social media and just started talking shit about them? You know, you can do whatever and just said, hey, you know, your arms are bad. Hey, man, your legs are terrible. You know, if I don't you just move on. You're just like, dude, okay, fine. Okay, whatever. But it is what it is. You know, you just have to kind of move on. It's just life. But there's negative people in this world. And the only difference is now they have an anonymous platform they can come at you on.
Right. And they often create fake accounts.
Yeah.
I'll block them and they create another fake account.
YouTube was the best for that. When I used to read the comments, man, I'd block them and they'd come back and they'd like, hey, it's this guy. I'm back. I'm like, Jesus, God.
You get too much time on your hands.
Oh, it's so funny though. But you got to realize who has that. Like, do you have that time? You just sit there and troll someone's comment section on YouTube. Like, what are you doing with your life?
I wouldn't even know how to do it.
No.
I don't even know how I created my own account.
Oh man, there's a new YouTube ultra. It's called Rumble, and it's like, because basically there's censorship on YouTube and Twitter. So they have Parler, which is kind of like where the conservatives are going now, because they feel, I don't know if this is true, they feel that they're censoring conservatives. I never get censored, so I don't give a shit. You know, I guess I'm not controversial enough, but so I'm like, dude, I'm gonna start an account here just in case this is the next MySpace to Facebook type transition, right? And I'm trying to fucking get an account going, and I feel like I'm fucking mentally handicapped or I'm getting old or something. I'm like, wait, how do you do this? Like, I'm serious. But you know, these kids, like and then my daughter come in and go, Dad, press that button. I'm like, oh, yeah. Never mind. I'm that old guy who can't use his own fucking technology.
Yeah, that's me too.
Yeah, I feel so stupid. It's like the kids are like setting up their Xbox, and I'm like, I don't even know how that works. I'm like, I don't even know how to play video games anymore, man. I'm old.
Well, that's good. You're on to bigger and better things anyway.
Yes.
Well, Marc, thank you so much. I really want to thank you for coming up this weekend and bringing incredible energy. You know, me and Nate, we work hard, but sometimes it gets stale. And you brought some crazy energy, and we blasted it. And it was such a good time, and good to really get to meet you and know you better than the you know, as Nate says, what the internet persona is. Yeah. You know,
well, I really appreciate it. And you guys, the open invite to Tennessee is there. We have an extra space. We have extra space, man. You're always welcome here.
Yeah, we'll take you up on that, because there's a lot more freedom down there. For sure.
America.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. We'll talk later, and you know, have a great day. Thanks for coming on, opening up for us. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks again for having me.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Take care, guys.